Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. We talk real talk sports. Today is beautiful March 22nd, 2016, Big C. And before we even get started, I hope that we can find a way to end this worldwide madness of terrorist attacks. I hate it. I know we all want to be safe and enjoy spring, but my heart and thoughts go out to the families and the victims of the terrorist attacks in Belgium. And Big C, I know as an athlete that travels, you also know that athletes have concerns when they travel. But before we get your thoughts on that, Big C, I just want to say that this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealerships. Go see the Northern California Cadillac dealers and ask if you can drive the Cadillac Escalade. It is a beautiful vehicle. It is big. It is strong. It is powerful. And tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And Big C, also your thoughts on what happened in Belgium with the terrorist attacks, and how do athletes deal with that?
Well, Charlton, it's great to be with you again on this historical and saddened day around the world. When you think about the attacks in Belgium, everybody understands the plight of war. But when you attack innocent civilian victims, that's not war, that's cowardice, Charlton. And when you're in a public place, and these people are just trying to get somewhere. We know here in the States, it's spring break time. So there's a lot of travelers throughout the world and nationally that are just trying to go enjoy themselves. But now, once again, the joy of life has been taken away by some heinous act. And when you think about athletes, Charlton, who have to travel for a living, Dikembe Mutombo, former NBA great, 7'2" center, retired from the Hawks over a decade ago, was in Belgium in the airport, traveling back from one of his humanitarian aid missions in Africa. And he was there sleeping in an airport lounge when the bomb blast went off. But the fear, not only athletes, but just everyday citizen, Charlton. No one should have to live under situations like this. We had the incident in Paris. We had San Bernardino here in the United States just a couple months ago. So, I don't know what the world can do as far as ending this, but, there has to be some sort of solution, and hopefully we can get the world leaders together and come up with some conclusion.
Well, Big C, we know, and those are good thoughts. I know that there's always been war and there's always been violence, and sometimes we talk sports all the time, but life happens too, and we're more than just a sports talk, and we like to bring everyone just peace of mind, and, it takes a price to stay free, and in the United States, we are free. So as we get into talking about our program today, Big C, just again, heartfelt thoughts go out to the families and victims of Belgium, and everyone, hopefully keep your peace out there. Now, as we talk about, controversial issues and sometimes Hollywood actors, I know we're going to transition into this, Big C, because Hollywood is based on fantasy, and fantasy and sports go together. And when you think about what happened in Belgium, we have some great actors that we celebrate, and sometimes we celebrate their violence, but through some of their acting, we have great entertainment, like the great Clint Eastwood. He's made some great movies, like Dirty Harry, but it's always been about sometimes violence. But he's still a great actor, and people can find solace in that, Big C.
Well, Clint Eastwood, Charlton, got his start in spaghetti westerns, along with former NFL running back Jim Brown and Woody Strode, who played at UCLA with Jackie Robinson, who played in the Canadian League for about a decade, and also John Wayne, who played football. He was an offensive tackle at USC. So those gentlemen have a lot in common through acting and in sports. And so when we look at those guys transitioning through, it's sort of like a transition of life. I look at a lot of the media negativity that was thrown towards President Obama because he was at a baseball game today, but he had also spoken with the Belgian Prime Minister prior to attending the baseball game. People don't understand what this man does all the time. So he was interacting in world issues prior to sitting down, enjoying an afternoon game of baseball, dealing with diplomatic diplomacy with a country he just opened up trade to after some 50 years of an embargo, Charles.
He met with Raul Castro in Havana, Cuba. But this is something that the president is doing to actually bridge people together. And There's so much. I mean, look at what happened in Belgium. We're tired of that. We're going to bring people together. So you're always going to find people that criticize you. And even you talked about one of the great actors also at Big C, and John Wayne, and how he was always in the Westerns. I remember as a boy growing up watching John Wayne. You know, he's a bad boy. Whenever John Wayne showed up, you know something was going down. But that strong American figure, we love that on the big screen. But when it happens in real life, you know, we don't like that feeling. But John Wayne did so much, Big C. And you mentioned he was an athlete at USC. Just can't say enough about how great he was as an American figure, Big C.
Well, he was an American icon, Charlton. John Wayne, the Duke. You know, He was a larger-than-life figure throughout his acting career. We saw him in so many great Westerns. The Man Who Shot Liberty Balance, The Sons of Katie Elder, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I mean, and the list just went on.
Yes.
But, you know, the roles that he played, there was a lot of violence in the roles. And, you know, we talk about world terrorism.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about actors, I have to look at John Travolta, the great John Travolta.
Yeah.
He played in a movie called Swordfish.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he was going after world terrorists. And maybe that's what needs to be done. President Obama has killed more terrorists than anybody else in history.
Yeah.
You know, he goes after them with drones and any means possible. But he gets a lot of backlash for what he does, Charlton.
Yeah.
He is trying to make the world safer, such as John Travolta did in his movie Swordfish. But the president is not asking for praise when he goes out and does his job, because that's what he was elected by the American people to do.
Yes.
He ended two wars, Charlton, one in Afghanistan and one in Iraq, that had been going on that cost America trillions of dollars. Not by his doing, but he ended it. And he's been trying to fight this war on terrorism, but the world expects him to do it by himself.
Well,
he needs a collaborative from the rest of the world's leaders to end terrorism, Charlton.
Yes, and as you always know, every time you're in a leadership role, there's going to be people who are for you and people who are against you. And also, speaking about leadership role, Big C, we talk very much on the Charlton and Big C show every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Back into the NFL, Roger Goodell, the owners are trying to get Goodell to delegate some of his duties as far as the punishment of players. Now, we've talked about him, Big C, since going back to Salem Media. No one's beating up on Roger Goodell. But if you're the guy in charge, you're going to get good and bad. And this is real talk, because at $44 million salary, he's helping be the spokesperson for all of the league owners. However, you have to also be able to take the flack when people are saying he's a guy that can put someone's career in jeopardy. Well, sometimes criticism that comes to him, he kind of pushes back from that, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, he has not been consistent across the board, Charlton.
Yeah.
Even in his punishment of players.
Yeah.
Roger Goodell has looked at each situation differently. There hasn't been a unilateral punishment level as far as how he delegates that to players. And I think the owners are getting kind of frustrated because the level of intensity that he's going after certain individuals, and such as a Tom Brady, a 2-year witch hunt for one quarterback who didn't have the needle to let the air out of football.
Exactly, for nothing.
But, you know, you have players that have been injured on the field, Charlton. You know, they talked about the CTE, where under his regime, it was lied about, saying that it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So shouldn't the commissioner at some point be sanctioned for his inaccuracies? I mean, they weren't inaccuracies, Charlton. They were straight up lies.
Yeah, straight up
say that
cover up.
CTE did not exist.
Yeah.
Knowing that players were suffering from this, Charlton.
Yeah, and we know that oftentimes, and again, it can seem like we're picking at Roger Goodell, but there are a lot of players who just want someone to be decent and consistent, and sometimes that doesn't happen. And as we go back to one more thing, Big C, I know we were talking about commissioner, and you have Adam Silver with the NBA. Well, we have a time, in our time right now, and I think we always talk old school and new school, Big C, but sometimes you just need leadership to set the standard. The way President Obama's down in Cuba, setting a standard for diplomacy. He's not going to please everybody. I even hear talking heads saying, well, you know they're never going to have equality in Cuba. But you know what? People said the same thing about the United States of America during slavery. But it takes people who have a vision to bring people together. And speaking of vision, I want to say one more thing about Goodell, and I want your thoughts on this. Under Pete Rozelle, I believe the great Al Davis helped put that together. But a lot of the owners are silent when it comes to Goodell. But Al Davis, he was a Maverick. A lot of people didn't like Al Davis either, but he was someone that helped create what we call the NFL now. We need some more owners stepping out and saying something publicly. So it's not just Roger Goodell, but some of the owners. Do you think they're hiding behind their power, Big C?
They're hiding behind their power, and they put Roger Goodell out there in the forefront to buffer all of what they would be taking if he wasn't there. When we talked about the Maverick Al Davis, Al Davis and Pete Rozelle fought all the time, but they were intelligent enough to come together and put the AFL and the NFL together after the 1970 season, Charlton, to make one league called the NFL. And no longer had the two rival leagues, two separate drafts, teams fighting over players, getting drafted in two leagues. When you think about the collaborative that they created, Pete Rozelle left a great legacy as well as Al Davis did. It was taken over by Paul Tagliabue after Pete Rozelle. Paul Tagliabue, he grew the NFL, Charlton, when you think about how the NFL grew under his leadership. But when we look at what Roger Goodell is doing, Roger Goodell is talking about protecting the shield. He hurts the shield as much as he protects the shield. Now, nobody's perfect. It's like people blasting President Obama for being down in Cuba, talking about the oppression that has lasted in Cuba over the last 50 years. Well, all of those people that are blasting the president are not black, okay?
That's true.
Because how long did black oppression last in the United States? So the Cuban citizenship has come a lot further than African-American citizenship in America in a shorter amount of time and been able to integrate into American culture and society, Charlton.
Well, that's a lightning rod of a conversation, Big C. When you think about it, Chris Rock just did the thing with the Oscars in Hollywood, and we always pay tribute to Hollywood and the great actors out of Hollywood, but it's a lightning bolt issue. And when you have people always trying to find something wrong with someone, some of these same talking head reporters that cover sports as well, they don't report negatively on Donald Trump saying beat the hell out of someone at a rally, he'll pay your medical or your legal fees. But here we are having a terrorist attack.
But Charlton, this is the guy that's talking about other nationalities being violent in America. This is a man that is running for president of the United States, the most powerful nation in the world.
Scary.
Advocating people to go out, fist fight, and kick people at rallies. He will pay your bail. He will pay the medical expenses. Now, when we talk about a guy that you want to have in charge, and this is the leadership role that so many Republicans are backing and saying Donald Trump is the guy for America.
That's a joke.
You have to ask about the sanity of these people, as well as Donald Trump, if you're advocating that. Now, if Donald Trump has his finger on the missiles, on the box,
I'm afraid.
Are you going to be happy? Are you going to become? It's like when we talked about what just happened in Belgium. That's Donald Trump waiting to happen, Charlton.
Well, you know,
and I'm putting light on the situation, but that's Donald Trump waiting to happen.
I think it's right. Whenever you spew hate, and I think back to the great Dr. Martin Luther King and how everywhere he went, he had people cheering for him because of his speeches. And some people were cynical about that because they did not want to integrate society. And speaking of integrating society, our segment right now is brought to you by none other than BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Go down and see your Northern California BMW dealers. Tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. We told you yesterday, Big C, the New York Auto Show, they're unleashing the BMW M7, 600 horsepower family car. Okay? A 600 horsepower family sedan.
What kind of family you got that you need 600 horsepower? You know,
I guess
is that 8 is enough or something like that?
Hey, I guess it's something that even James Bond would be envious of. So go down and test drive. I don't know if they let you test drive the M7 because if you have that kind of money, you probably already know what you're going to get out of that car, Big C. But anyway, if you go down there, tell them the Charlton and Big C sent you. Go ahead, Big C.
Well, I don't think they're going to let many test drive. You got to have your insurance papers to get behind the wheel of that car.
Lightning rod of a car. And as we're also talking about so many different things in the NFL. We talked about Goodell, Calvin Johnson, and you brought it up earlier, Big C. I really didn't agree at the time, but you said that Calvin Johnson would come out of retirement. He was just tired of being in Detroit. And he's possibly looking at signing with Kraft and the Patriots.
Well, you know, a la Randy Moss, you know, here's a chance to go someplace and rejuvenate your career. You remember when Randy Moss had gone to the Raiders?
Yeah.
Not that he had a downside in his career. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons when he was with the Raiders. And you think about the accomplishment of that. Randy Moss has done that with 3 teams, the Vikings, the Raiders, and the Patriots.
Yeah.
You know, more than multiple 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
And here's Calvin Johnson. Now, you pair up Calvin Johnson and Tom Brady, Charlton.
Yeah.
What a dynamite connection that you could have in the NFL. The Patriots know how to get players, the right players to bring into their system. And when you talk about getting somebody over the top, now Randy Moss had, 2,000 yards receiving with Tom Brady?
Yeah.
And 22 touchdowns, 21 touchdowns one season?
Yeah.
Just imagine what Calvin Johnson can do in that offense also, Charlton. And also the NFL outlawed chop block today. That's something we can't overlook.
Yeah.
There's been many players over the years injured from this chop block, this high-low block, offensive lineman or running back, coming in, chopping a defensive lineman while he's engaged. A very dangerous scenario to have. I know during my career, I was forced to have knee surgery one time from one of those scenarios, Charlton.
Well, I know definitely we talk about, and again, the NFL trying to be able to crack down on player misbehavior, such as taunting, such as punching or hitting. And I still want to bring it up. It's been about a month now since Brock Osweiler pushed a woman twice. It was on camera. Nothing said other than about 5 minutes of talking head. Even women were saying, well, he's trying to defend his wife. When does a 6'7" football player have to defend anyone by pushing? All you got to do is stand in between someone. But based on that too, Big C, with the NFL trying to say no more violence, and we had that commercial that they made, that clandestine commercial about we want to protect all the women. And just keep this in mind, as people might say, well, you guys talking about it all the time, but no one else is. If you have a daughter going to college, or any woman that's working in any work environment, whether you're in college, whether you're working for some major corporation in America, but especially, Big C, what we've seen over the past several years with these sports teams. We just had Aaron Andrews getting $55 million for someone, I guess, taking a picture of her and sending it on the internet. But you have so many other women who are out there working just like men, trying to earn a living. But you have this silent, this tacit consent that as long as you don't hit a woman, it's okay to push a woman. And ironically, as we talk about football players behaving badly, I think one of the agents that is Drew Rosenhaus. He's Johnny Manziel's agent, the former Cleveland Browns quarterback.
Yes, he is.
He hired Rosenhaus as his new agent. What happened to Ray Rice when he hit a woman? He was suspended. But they're trying to find another job for Johnny Manziel, who was not even a good player, but there was no suspension of him for a year. But Rosenhaus is trying to get Manziel on with another team as if it never happened. Why do I bring that up? I think it's so powerful to bring it up.
Charlton, there was 2 incidents with police reports involved of Johnny Manziel making physical contact, attacking his woman.
Yeah.
Now, in his life, just send him to counseling for a couple weeks and he'll be okay.
Yeah.
He'll be okay. Went to counseling the first time, Charlton. Came back 6 weeks later, the same incident. And so is that a pattern? Is that a modus operandi? Or is it just the boys being boys? The thing I notice more than anything else, Charlton, these are white players that are getting off with these incidents. African-American players, Charlton, have been suspended for years, for seasons, for their career. But we have incidents when you talk about the quarterbacks at Tennessee, the quarterback in Lake Tahoe and downtown in Atlanta, Johnny Manziel, and we just had an incident with Brock Osweiler just a few weeks ago pushing a woman. But even more egregious, Charlton, there was an allegation of 2 Laker players, okay?
Yeah.
2 Laker players, NBA players, verbally harassing a woman.
Yeah.
Verbally.
Yeah.
Not physically, verbally. Saying gestures or whatever.
Yeah.
They were riding in a car, Charlton. They didn't get out. They did not pursue this woman. They did not go up and make physical contact with this woman. But ESPN last night was all over it, burying these guys, Shaggy Pete and one of the other players.
Yeah. Well,
it's egregious that it's a two-faced in media. That when you see a white quarterback attack a woman, well, there has to be some underlying current to this.
Well,
but
see,
when you have African-American players, hey, let's just get rid of them.
Well, see, Big C, there was a time when I would say, well, maybe race is not that important. There's a great author by the name of Tim Wise. He wrote a book about race matters, as well as you look at some of the great other writers in the world that talk about race, the tipping point. And I just want to bring this up because this is so important too. Manziel faces legal consequences from a domestic incident in Texas, also with the great Brock Osweiler being given $75 million. Now, the NFL is also investigating the 2012 Heisman Trophy winner who played for Texas A&M. You just brought up the two Los Angeles Laker guys that were accused of some type of allegations in a lightning rod conversation for the Lakers. Now, here's a player again in Manziel, and I just hope that we get to the point where it's not just you and I talking about this, because we know the NFL, the fan base, Big C, 50% are women. And sometimes people tell these women, oh, don't worry about it, just tough it up. You don't want to hurt the athlete's career. This guy's making a lot of money. You don't want to be the reason that brings him down. Just suffer in silence. Well, I say the heck with that. I hope that people start bringing up these incidences, because instead of a player going into counseling, and I'm not saying that people can't change, but go through some type of rehab. Don't just throw him back in the uniform, and then when he's in the uniform, he's okay, and you put him in a car with a woman or behind closed doors. Who's looking out for the woman then, Big C? Why is the NFL so silent?
When you have to look at some of these players, are they behaving like millionaires, or are they behaving like thugs that are millionaires? I think that's what we have to look at. Many professional athletes are gang members and thugs with a number and name on their back now.
Now, see, people don't want to hear that. Now, that Big C, at that moment in time, you and I both know what we're talking about is true, but media doesn't want to hear that because they want to paint these guys and I know not everybody's bad, and you and I both know that, but they want to paint this as an image of these guys being your father figures or your brother figures. But the side of the NFL, and we talked about it, there was a movie called North Dallas 40, I believe. It talked about a lot of these guys are just addicted to different substances so they can get through the CTE issues that we're talking about. I don't believe hiding is going to make it a big thing, but some people are bad characters when they get into the game, and some of them even get jobs on TV after their playing careers are over, Big C.
Well, Charlton, if the police were to arrest half these professional athletes out there, and what police officers do now when they arrest people is they take off their shirts and they check them for tattoos to see which gang insignias that they have on them. And I know several years ago that the NFL put a moratorium on players flashing signals on the sideline because that's what they were doing. They were flashing gang insignias on the sideline, and now they're all tattooed up. A lot of them have gang insignias. I know Colin Kaepernick was labeled as a gang member. Further from the truth could it have been.
He's never been in trouble.
Because he had tattoos. They could not read the biblical scripture on his tattoos, so they wanted to label him as a gang member. He was nowhere near that, Charlton, but this is a kid that's been maligned in every kind of way throughout his career. He's done nothing wrong. We haven't seen him. He even alleged was in a sexual incident down in Miami a couple of years that he had no involvement in. But they tried to bury his career over that, and yet we have quarterbacks, Charlton, that not allege that there is physical evidence of the things that they have done, and the media turns its eye on it.
Well, Big C, as we get to the next segment, I think there's a lightning rod segment, and this segment is brought to you by your Northern California Ford dealer. Go down and test drive the new Ford F-150. It is powerful. It is built Ford tough. One of the most dependable trucks that Ford has built over the past several decades. Tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, we're talking about players being accused of certain things. Tonight, HBO with Bryant Gumbel's doing a story on the mayor, Kevin Johnson, mayor of Sacramento, who helped keep the Sacramento Kings here. Whether you like athletes or not, they go on to become great figures in society. It doesn't mean they're without controversy. Elliot Spitzer out of New York State, Marion Barry in D.C. We have so many people, even if you go back to the great JFK with Marilyn Monroe. But the dating situation that happens in sports, and let's be real with it, a lot of these guys, let's go into Hulk Hogan. And I know a lot of people are laughing about what happened with Hulk Hogan.
$115 million for having sex.
No.
You got half of America looking to get in that line, John.
No, but Big C, they gave him an extra $125 million for having sex with his best friend's wife. Now,
what was the $25 million for? A happy ending?
I guess if you call it a happy ending, but his ex-wife's not too happy with it because she was divorced from him. I think she was even dating some teenage boy at the time that led to that. But this is
also, Charlton, they were going through their divorce. Their divorce had not been finalized. So, she says she doesn't want any money, but I guarantee you within the next 6 months she'll be filing a lawsuit to get half of it.
Oh, she was more than half of it. In fact, if you think about this is so important because athletes date. And because if you really are real about it, I know there's television and there's X-rated and there's PG rated. But when you become a multimillionaire, you come into tens of millions of dollars and you're in your 20s. A lot of women, and some people are going to hate when I say this, but it's true. A lot of women will throw themselves at these men. Not
what you mean throwing themselves? They just laying there waiting, Charlton. Ain't nobody throwing. They just laying there waiting.
Well, that's one thing that I noticed, and because that's reality. And for athletes out there, whether you're male or female, whether you're in Hollywood or if you're an athlete, football, basketball, or baseball, sometimes people have an ulterior motive. So if you're Hulk Hogan and you're going to go deal with your best friend's wife, she might be wondering, hey, what's the video camera for? And I say that jokingly, but keep this in mind. Whatever you do because of the internet now, it's there forever. We talked about Will Smith earlier in the program a few weeks ago. He did Enemy of the State. Everything we do is under surveillance. Now, the reason I bring that up, Big C, is because you get more money for having sex and sending that out on the internet if you go to court than you do for being physically assaulted. I think that's wrong, but athletes have to be careful. What's your advice to young athletes that come into a lot of money, Big C?
Well, everybody, all of these women out there that are chasing these athletes are looking for a baby's daddy. They're not looking for a life. They're looking for a lifestyle. They're looking to have a child, and if they get a child, then all of a sudden they figure that they're going to be taken care of for life. I remember so many basketball players. Think about the great Sean Kemp.
Yeah.
Who played in Seattle with the Supersonics when they were still there.
Yeah.
The Rain Man.
Yeah.
Sports Illustrated did a cover on him one time. Really wasn't a cover on him. It was about his kids. He had 9 children. 9 children by 7 different women, Charlton.
Yeah.
And the cover on Sports Illustrated, which was an embarrassment, says, "Where's Daddy?"
Yeah.
Now, you also think about the late Derek Thomas, who played with the Kansas City Chiefs out of Alabama, the outside linebacker.
Yeah.
Derek Thomas, at the time of his death, had 12 children, Charlton, by 11 different women. 12 children. These guys were multimillionaires, both of them.
Yeah.
But there also has to be some responsibilities from these women.
And men, too. And then because it takes two, Big C.
But it's the exploitation of a child, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's exploitation of a child. I'm going to have a child so somebody can make my life right.
Yeah.
And when these women out there saying that I need 10, I need 15, I need $20,000 a month to maintain the lifestyle that I want.
Yeah.
Not that I need, because I never made $20,000 a year in my life, but he can afford to pay $20,000 a month in child support because he makes $5 million a year.
And see, I would also
so that I can live his lifestyle.
Well, see, I would also put the men, if men are that dumb that they're laying down with a woman.
Charlton, you said the key word dumb.
Yeah.
And that's what we talked about with these athletes that lack a college degree, Charlton.
Yeah.
The word dumb is very profound. This is that one and done generation, Charlton, so they don't get an education.
Yeah.
They don't have social economic skills. They don't have proper sexual skills, Charlton, so they're just out there freelancing.
Well,
and these are the consequences of what happens. So if his career ends, and this woman has set up this child in his lifestyle, now he has no more money, and he's in court. I remember Allen Iverson going to court to have his child support reduced because he was no longer in the NBA.
Well, you know,
that he can only afford to pay $300 a month now.
Yeah, and we're not making this just about athletes, but the average guy that works 9 to 5 doesn't make 10, 15, 25, $30 million a year. And when you know that, just like rock and roll, I think Eddie Murphy said it best. If you want to get a woman, you got to sing, or you got to play athletics. And this is for women too, because if you look at some of the wealthy actresses or some of the wealthy athletes, like a Serena Williams, she's wealthy. There's a lady that I think she got engaged to Russell Wilson up for the Seattle Seahawks? Well, Sierra. Or you look at people like Kim Kardashian, she's worth $200 million, but she made most of her money by making the sex tape, and because she's an entrepreneur. Now, I know some people hate sex, so they don't want to hear things about people getting wealthy with sex. We talked about the great Pam Anderson and Tommy Lee, and all these great people that do whatever they do in private, they learn to put it on videotape, and they become wealthy off of it. But if you're an athlete, you can't be so foolish that, and I'm not trying to preach here, but it's just because I worked in the business so long, and I see how guys are in it for 5 years, but then you have a kid that's just out there because of your not thinking properly. And men and women, Big C, in the next 2 minutes of the program, what would you say to this lightning rod program? Because a lot of people don't want to talk about sex. In fact, a lot of people want to pretend that consenting adults don't even do it. So
both sides are equally blamed, Charlton, when you look at it. But, the guys have to be responsible for their actions. The women also have to be responsible for their actions because they're playing another life on the line. Not just the two of them, but putting another life on the line. And also in this day of social diseases, Charlton, that are very prominent in the world and in America, that should be in the forefront of everybody's mind.
So in the
not worrying about getting a payday. Having a baby, but you may end up with something that's like Samsonite luggage. You stuck with it for life.
Well, when you think about that, too, and you hear a lot of athletes saying they're going to go out and make it rain, I was so naive because I'm a little bit older than the young generation. I guess making it rain means going to a strip club and throwing money on the stage. And however you make your money, that's fine with me. I'm not hating on people. But I hope that people who have boys and girls that you're raising, you want them to aspire to more than just that. But I'm not hating on it because it's a free society. You do what you want to do. But in the last 30 seconds, Big C, what advice would you give to women about pursuing athletes just for some type of piggy bank? And I'm not trying to say it's bad because even in middle America, people want to marry up. There's nothing wrong with marrying for money. But what advice would you give to young women who think they're going to make some athlete their gold mine in a sense?
Well, so many of them over the decades, not recently, Charlton, but over the decades. And I mean, it parallels life when you look at that.
Yeah.
If you look at Hollywood, you look at acting, you look at modeling.
Yeah.
You're looking for the next pretty thing is what everybody's looking for. And in that lifestyle, and as well as in Hollywood entertainment, only thing people want old is memories. That's all they're looking for is old is memories. They're always looking to upgrade, look for something younger, stronger. It's like in athletics, it parallels. But we're just looking at the mentality of it. We're just looking at the intellectual part of life, Charles. It's just about the physicality.
Well, we know that sex matters, race matters, everything matters if it's important to you. And it also matters that we're out of time, Big C. It always goes by way too fast. And I just want to tell you that I always appreciate talking to you because we talk about sports, we talk about Hollywood, we talk about so many lightning rod subjects. It always opens my mind. And you can follow Charlton and Big C every Monday through Friday at the 5 o'clock p.m. hour Pacific Standard Time. We are worldwide on Charlton and Big C Sports. We want to thank you for listening. We appreciate you. We hope that you have a super fantastic day.